ourselves, not looking at a deficit and feeling like we can't get back. So for us, we had the confidence that we're going to take every possession, inch back, inch back, inch back. And
it almost looked like Bria Hartley went into hiding after the news broke. And from the outside, it even seemed like she was running away from the storm. That storm hit hard the moment Sophie Cunningham collapsed to the floor, clutching her knee, while Hartley walked away with what many described as a smirk. Indiana later confirmed what fans feared most: an MCL tear that would sideline Cunningham for the entire season. What should have been a tragic moment in its own right became a full-blown controversy because of Hartley's reaction, while Sophie's family begged the league to step up and protect players. Hartley looked like she was enjoying the chaos, and that single expression turned heads around the basketball world. Clips of her smirk went viral in seconds, and the conversation shifted quickly from the accident itself to her character, intent, and whether she'd finally crossed the line. That freeze-frame image of Hartley grinning was replayed, clipped, zoomed in, and spread across social media non-stop. Fans weren't just dissecting the collision anymore, they were pointing at that sinister grin, pausing it frame by frame, and insisting it revealed everything about intent. The play itself had unfolded in chaos. Up until that point, both teams were trading baskets at a tight pace. Then Hartley barreled in from an awkward angle and crashed into Cunningham's planted leg. Sophie instantly went down in visible pain, grabbing her knee as the arena fell silent. Trainers rushed over, but instead of concern, the cameras caught Hartley glancing back with a grin. That moment told an entirely different story online. The actual basketball collision looked messy, even unlucky, but the smirk that was the moment that enraged fans, and it gave fuel to a narrative that this wasn't just an accident. Context made things worse. Hartley wasn't exactly a clean slate player. To begin with, she already had a reputation for playing physically, for skirmishes, for ejections. Fans remembered her heated dust-up with Angel Reese, which escalated into a hair-pulling incident that dominated headlines. So, when she appeared to smile after Sophie Cunningham's season ended, those memories of past altercations resurfaced. Suddenly, it wasn't just one questionable moment, it looked like part of a pattern. Then came the damning receipts. Online investigators dug up Hartley's recent Instagram activity, where she liked to post labeling her the definition of consistency, for always being at the scene of trouble. The same post referenced her previous chokeslam-style move-on. Angel Reese. To fans, this wasn't just poor optics. This was Hartley essentially embracing the role of villain, liking and boosting content that portrayed her as a repeat offender. Screenshots of her activity circulated everywhere, adding fuel to the fire and cementing her image as a dirty player. The official diagnosis that Cunningham suffered an MCL tear ended any hope of brushing this off as a scare. With her out for the season, the narrative hardened. Sophie Cunningham wasn't just unlucky, she was targeted. Analysts, fans, and even family members began saying it outright. And here's where the outrage hit another level, not from referees, not from league officials, but from Sophie's own family. Her sister Lindsay blasted the WNBA's officiating on X, demanding consistency and accusing the league of protecting refs over players. The message struck deep because it didn't just come from emotion. It reflected frustration many fans and players had already been voicing all year. Sophie herself had been fined earlier in the season for criticizing officials, so when her sister pointed out that the league punished words but not reckless play, it resonated as a direct attack on the WNBA's priorities. Even Sophie's mother, Paula Cunningham, chimed in with a blunt post calling Hartley a disgruntled, mean player who was out of control. She deleted it later, but by then screenshots were everywhere. Coming from Sophie's family, the criticism hit harder than anything social media fans could have said. It felt like confirmation that the smirk wasn't imagined, it was real, it was cruel, and it cut deepest for the people who cared about Sophie most. Indiana Fever fans piled on, furious, not just at the injury, but at the idea that opponents were literally smiling while their players went down. To them, this wasn't a wartime incident. This was part of a pattern of physicality and disrespect their team had been enduring all season. The refereeing itself drew renewed heat, as people questioned why play wasn't stopped immediately when Sophie was clearly hurt. Critics pointed to long-standing inconsistency in officiating across the league, arguing it left players vulnerable. And yet, while outrage boiled, the Fever still had to finish the game. What followed was a reminder of how quickly a season can flip, not just because of who they lost, but because of how the team chose to respond. Inside the locker room, the message was resilience. Coaches and players vowed to keep pushing forward, even as Sophie's absence left a massive hole in the lineup. But the bigger questions remain. Was Hartley's reaction proof of intent? Will the league hold her accountable? And will this moment finally force the WNBA to rethink how it protects its athletes?
Here's Mitchell, jittering into the paint, working around Cloud and scooping it in. Beautiful.
It was a night that no Indiana Fever fan, and really no WNBA fan, will forget anytime soon. Because what unfolded in that arena was the kind of drama that defines entire seasons. It started as heartbreak, unfolded into controversy, and ended in history. From Sophie Cunningham's devastating injury to Bria Hartley's viral smirk. From the outrage of family members to the silence of league officials. And from the bleak 21-point halftime deficit to the improbable record-breaking comeback. This single game carried everything: the pain, the anger, the resilience, and the glory. It is worth taking apart piece by piece, because the way it happened tells a bigger story about where this league is, what these players represent, and how thin the line can be between collapse and triumph. The turning point of the night came, suddenly, almost violently. Sophie Cunningham planted her leg, ready to make a move, when Bria Hartley barreled into her at an awkward angle. It wasn't a clean collision. It wasn't one of those routine basketball bumps that everyone shrugs off. It was hard, it was sharp, and it left Sophie crumpled on the floor, clutching her knee in obvious pain. The arena fell silent, because everyone understood instantly this wasn't minor. Trainers rushed in, teammates stood back with worry etched across their faces, and fans held their breath. But as all of that was happening, as Sophie tried to process the pain of what had just happened, the cameras caught something that completely changed the narrative. They caught Hartley glancing back with what looked like a grin. It wasn't the face of shock. It wasn't concern. It wasn't the instinctive human reaction of sympathy when another athlete goes down. It was, at least too many watching, a smirk. That 1 second, frozen in time by television replays and social media screenshots, ignited a firestorm. The image spread across Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube within minutes. People clipped it, zoomed in, slowed it down, circled Hartley's expression, and replayed it over and over. Fans weren't arguing as much about whether the collision was dirty or accidental. They were fixated on the reaction. That grin became the centerpiece of outrage. Was it really a smile? Was it nerves? Was it satisfaction? To many, it confirmed what they already believed. Hartley was a dirty player. And this was the ultimate proof. The backlash only intensified. Once Indiana confirmed the diagnosis later that night, Sophie Cunningham had suffered an MCL tear. She would be out for the rest of the season. That took the moment from scary to catastrophic. It wasn't a bruise or a short-term absence, it was a season ender. And the timing could not have been worse. The Fever were already battling adversity, already missing Caitlin Clark, already trying to hold together a fragile roster. Losing Sophie, one of their emotional anchors, felt like the season breaking in half. But the injury didn't stand alone. It collided with Bria Hartley's reputation. This wasn't her first controversy. Fans remembered her ejections, her physical altercations, the infamous hair-pulling incident with Angel Reese. The narrative was already written in the minds of many. Hartley thrived on chaos. She pushed boundaries, and she didn't always play with control. So, when the cameras caught that smirk, all of those past incidents got pulled back into the spotlight. People weren't just looking at Sophie on the ground, they were connecting the dots to a pattern. And the pattern painted Hartley as someone who was reckless at best, malicious at worst. Then came the receipts. Online sleuths dug into Hartley's Instagram activity and found that she had recently liked posts, essentially celebrating her reputation as a troublemaker. One post called her the definition of consistency for always being at the scene of chaos. Another reminded fans of her chokeslam move on Angel Reese. Screenshots of her likes went viral, cementing the perception that she wasn't just indifferent to criticism, she embraced it. For fans furious over Sophie's injury, this was gasoline on the fire. The outrage wasn't led by analysts or league officials at first. It came from Sophie's own family. Her sister Lindsay went to X and posted a blistering critique of WNBA officiating. She said the league needed to focus less on fining players for criticizing refs, and more on hiring officials who could actually protect athletes. The post hit hard, because it wasn't just an emotional outburst, it was an echo of what fans and players had been saying. All season long, officiating was inconsistent. Dangerous plays weren't being caught, and instead of addressing the problem, the league had made a habit of punishing players like Sophie for speaking out. In fact, Sophie herself had been fined multiple times earlier in the year for criticizing referees. That history made Lindsay's words sting even more, because it highlighted what many saw as the league's upside-down priorities: fines for speech, no accountability.